All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the York County Economic Development Meeting, the first meeting of 2025. I'm going to ask Councilman Aldad if he'll lead us in a quick prayer.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, you got it. All right, Lord Jesus, thank you for this day, for this time together that we can talk through our agenda today, and that we are here to represent the public and the needs of the public, Lord Jesus. We thank you, we love you, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Next order of business is, I'd like to introduce any guests in the room, if you don't mind doing that. That way everybody knows who's here. I think we know who's here, but start with Amy.
We moved out of camera shot, if you're wondering.
Yeah, it did, and then still,
They
I feel
didn't
like
see
I'm
us
still.
smacking our gum or whatever we're doing, not realizing it. So, my name is Amy Falconberry. I am a member of the Chamber's Government Relations Task Force and a business owner here.
Well, thanks for being here.
Good to see everyone. Jason Flores, City of Rock Hill Economic Development.
Thank you, Jason.
Teresa Curtis.
Economic Development.
Economic Development.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right. Also want to congratulate Mitch Miller. Everybody in the room knows that Mitch was hired as our Economic Development Director, and we're excited to work with you and the experience you bring to the table. Anything you want to share with the group? Already shared.
Just want to say thank you all for the opportunity. Look forward to working with you. I know we've already had some time together serving in the interim role, but excited at the potential York County has and excited to be part of the team. So management and council, thank you all. I really
You're
appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations. Great to have you on, man.
Thank you.
No doubt. All right, so since this is our first meeting, I did want to share a couple of things. Number one, kind of an expectation. The expectation is that outside of our meetings, if you want to have any conversations related to economic development, keep me in the loop, please. Don't leave me out of the loop. And then number two, our cadence, our meeting cadence for the foreseeable future is going to be monthly. So we've got our next meeting coming up on Thursday, March 6th at the bottom of your agenda at 4:30. We do have to identify a location for that particular meeting, and we had suggested Economic Development Office in Fort Mill. Is that going to work?
So Karen and I talked a little bit about this. I think it's a good idea to find a different location, obviously, because we've got HVAC projects coming all around the county as we upfit our infrastructure. I think one of our concerns, as Karen and I have looked at the ED building, is the conference room is really small. And granted, we don't have a lot of people here today, but if there's ever a lot of people, I've been in there's a meeting of the growth partners, it was like 12 of us, and it was tight.
We had 5 people in there today that felt tight.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things Karen and I discussed today, as we went through the agenda, the two of us, just to make sure we were on the same page, was thinking about the libraries. I don't know if you had any luck, or there's an Karen had a great idea of the Eastern Maintenance Facility that's in the same general area, but if you want to talk a little bit
I
about
spoke
that.
with our IT department. They are not super excited about the libraries.
Okay.
They prefer maybe not the library just for technical purposes. They can't guarantee that everything will work properly
Okay.
at the library, but they were on board with the Eastern Maintenance Facility.
What about, here's the thing. If we go to York, you've got to come from Charlotte all the way to York.
But Eastern Maintenance
It's in Fort Mill.
It's in Fort Mill.
So that could work, you're
We
saying?
think that's the best option.
Okay, let's do that.
It's a bigger conference room.
Everybody's good? You good with that?
I need to reach out to, his name's Shannon.
Yeah.
And confirm all that, but.
All right.
yes.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate you doing that. All right. And then the last thing is that, and we'll get to this when we get further into the agenda, what I'd like to do, and understand what the process is with council, if we're going to talk about things in committee, we need to get it approved beforehand. So the items that we're going to be talking about at our next meeting are on the agenda today. But the intention will be that we come into our meetings, we hit our business, our old business, and then we're going to set the scene for our next meeting with new business, and you'll kind of have some homework to prepare for that next meeting. Okay? Sound good?
Okay.
All right. Perfect. All right. So we had a committee meeting, the last committee meeting on Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, and can I have a motion to accept the minutes that have been presented?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Second?
Since I wasn't here, I'm gonna abstain on that, but you want me, I can second for us to move it on.
Okay. Second for me too. So the motion passes for the minutes. All right. Dean is here with us with the Chamber of Commerce, and I think Dylan's going to make a presentation to us. And Dylan, appreciate you being here. Dylan's an intern. He's one of 2 interns working with the Chamber. Thanks. Dylan, appreciate you being here
Yes,
today.
and absolutely, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Wyatt. So yeah, Dylan Bolton is passing out what is a small business or business toolkit. This is something that we started having a discussion with this committee probably close to a year ago, Tom and I, and the Chamber did some research. We found a couple of examples from some other communities. One we particularly tended to like was done in Catawba County, combination of Catawba County government, their ED department, the Chamber, and their technical college in that area. So we felt like that was a pretty good model to look at. So I turned that over to Dylan and Madison Morales, who couldn't be here, and said, hey, do some research on this, and let's put something together that we could use here, potentially in York County. So we've got it in presentation form. Dylan's going to run through it, but understand that this is a draft. We don't have this out for public consumption anywhere yet. Once you guys kind of see it and put your hands and fingers on it and get it back to us improved, we're going to want to get it. You'll see, like I see Jason here, we've got RHEDC listed and some other partners. We'll want them to look at it and make sure the information we've got on them is correct and the links that are the links that they want and that sort of thing. So, Dylan, it's yours, man.
Awesome. Again, thank you guys so much for having me and for giving me your time just to listen to what I have to say. So this toolkit, essentially, thank you, is broken down, right, for small businesses within York County specifically, okay? And these businesses, we start off hitting starting, we want to start up, and then we go into growth, right? So there's the beginning of the toolkit. And so that kind of first page there is, right, it's the congratulations, right? So this is a big deal for people who want to take this step. And in here we kind of give not only the chamber, a little bit of the chamber's goals and idea, but really what we want for York County as well. At the very bottom, you see the icons that you can use to kind of follow through the toolkit. And again, in a physical form, it's great, but this is also mainly made to be used digitally. So as we go through, you're going to see places that are highlighted, and that's where they can click and interact. Again, why would you want to come to York County? On the third page there, we have all of these articles, right? The ones that me and Madison selected felt best suited and represented the county. So we go right there on page 4. There's a table of contents, okay? So we have it broken down into these 5 sections, with the first 3 being the main parts of this toolkit. I want to start a business, I want to grow my business, and I want to relocate my business. The first one, I want to start a business, right? So we went through and broke it up into 4 simple steps, simple pieces of I want to start a business, okay? So the first one is something that we want businesses to be able to print out, thank you, to be able to print out and hang up on their wall, okay? The simple 6-step plan, right, that they can go by and check. They are very broad, however, so continuing on, we do kind of break down those 6 steps, right? There on page 7, you see we start with create your business plan. That was the first one. Go second, third, register your business, obtain, acquire license and permits. And all through there, as you can see, the first quick tip. Throughout the toolkit, we kind of have these little sections to help people out and guide them as they're moving through. And all those highlighted sections that are blue are where they can kind of click and go. So as an example, at the bottom there, business license for Fort Mill, Rock Hill, TUK, York, etc. We guide them there. Finishing up on those final 6 steps, then moving on to location and zoning, right? So this is before they even want to purchase. This is making sure that they can. Down there at the bottom, you see a list of all of the entities within York County. Moving on to the final part, small business tools and tips, right? So these are just kind of some entities they can quickly go to as soon as they're starting out, right? The initial start. We also have 2 downloadables for them there, a business plan template and a marketing research tools template that they can access digitally. So then there's our second, right? I want to grow my business. So this is a business that's already started and they're wanting to grow. So the only 2 sections we have there now are growing your business and then entities for growth, right? So going straight into the steps. So here are the steps for growing your business, and this is on page 12. And so we start off by giving them these check boxes, right? It says to streamline your business growth, and then after those steps, it goes into the local resources that they can kind of use to take advantage of those steps above. Following? On the next page, on 13, that's when it's going to go into organizations to help you grow. It kind of gives you a deeper insight into where they can run to for help growing. And finally, the last portion is going to be, I want to relocate my business, okay? So this is either for the small business that wants to purchase property within York County, or the potential for a business that wants to come to York County and wants to understand what that process is like purchasing property here. So first of all, there's the before you buy. So, we do link them back to the page previously talking about zoning and location, right? But then we go a little bit further here, talking about permit services, and also just confirming, is your business, right? Is this the correct zoning designation regulations? We go into that there at the bottom. Following on page 17, we go straight into buying developed property, okay? So we kind of wanted to break it into before you buy property, all right? And then if you're going to buy, there's going to be developed or undeveloped. Those are the two categories that me and Madison chose. There's developed, and then there is a typo on my behalf. That is my fault, but this is the undeveloped property. As you can see at the very top, right? Is it flat or hilly? Are there streamlines? And it goes down to things they would need as they're buying undeveloped property. Finishing off, we wanted to give them a resource guide, okay? So some of these entities were mentioned within the toolkit, some are not. Chamber, Economic Development, Small Business Center. You have the York County Planning and Development, Rock Hill Economic Development Corporation, and you have SEGov. And kind of with both of these pages, we wanted to give a quick summary and ways to contact those businesses, right? Those entities, of course. And then we have the Black Economic Leadership League and the York County Gravity Center. And then we also have a frequently asked questions. So with this page, some of these questions have actually been covered throughout the toolkit. But as me and Madison were thinking, we kind of wanted a page. If someone had a question and they just wanted to, instead of going through the toolkit, quickly go to this page and find a quick answer, that's what we kind of wanted here in this portion. And then finally, we just finished it off showcasing the York County initiative and the partnership between the two businesses there. So again, this is a very rough draft. I think that it's a very cool idea of what can be given and what can be offered to small businesses in York County. And I think it's a pretty attractive model. Do I think that under a group like this, it can be changed and edited and fixed? Absolutely, I do. But that's why I wanted it to be shown here for that. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to kick this off if you don't mind.
I knew you would.
Yeah, this has been very near and dear to my heart, moving forward with something like this. I'm very excited about what you guys have done here, first of all. I think you put a lot of time, effort, and I think when you look at this thing, I think it has a natural flow to it, and I think flow is important. When I saw parts of there where it talked about, where to look for real estate, right? There was a spot you had in there, where to look for financing. A lot of you hit upon a lot of questions that a small business company or anybody opening up small business have. I'm excited to launch this out. Now, I think that we're gonna vet through this and give feedback as we go, and we're gonna get feedback from people in the room, et cetera, and across the community. But once we get this ironed out, and again, I think your template and your flow is really nice. So congratulations on that. I want to push this with Greg Suskins. I want to make a big launch about this thing here. I want to make this site accessible, no matter whether it's our site, wherever it be. Let's look across the board and really do a big marketing launch for this thing, because I think you're tapping upon something that is exciting, and I think it's going to make the people of York County very happy. So that's my feedback. I want to thank you, and I look forward to our partnership as we move forward to get this thing launched. So
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
great
Yes,
job.
Sir. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you, Councilman Aldana.
I think it's great. I think one of the things that we talked about as a council is really giving an opportunity for smaller businesses to make connections with local community and find out what's going on. And there's a lot to digest here. I would certainly want to get some feedback from some of the businesses locally. They're going to be the ones that'll give us, I think, the best feedback on how to improve. But I appreciate doing it.
Thank you. All right, one question for you.
Yes, sir.
Would you say in this would include an explanation of expanding your business or maybe even a second location in the county? Would that be in the last section?
Well, no, sir. So I have not.
Yeah, we really didn't address that expansion component. It was more for startup or existing. And we did try to, one thing is I challenged these guys on was building it open enough that it would be fluid to where we can add to it, and, in the initial phase, it's like, making sure all those hot links are the right hot links, particularly, for the county and economic development, RHEDC, any of those partners that we have in there. But yeah, I think once we get kind of the baseline of what we feel confident that we can put out there, and it is user friendly, then we could certainly, kind of have a business toolkit 2.0 that has a section added to it.
Well, no, absolutely, and Martha, I think that's great that you kind of point that out, because again, that's one of the things that, coming to this meeting, my eyes and Madison's, we can only see so much, but you guys can see so far more, and I definitely think that there is the template there again. It can be changed, but it can be added to very fluently, right? Nothing's set in stone. So I think we could sit here and make a list of things similar to that, right? That maybe could be in here and that are not. But I think it's good that you can kind of see what can be added, right? That's that potential there for it.
Yeah.
So thanks.
So you're awesome. I've been on council 2 years, and a couple of meetings that I've done are with companies that are looking to expand. And what happens is they open their business under one zoning code, and the zoning code is changed now to a different zoning code. It doesn't apply when you change the use of your business.
Yes, sir.
And they run into challenges.
Gotcha.
So that's why I would, for one, would like to see that in there. And then just to let you know, maybe in our budget for 2025, 2026, we'll have a ombudsman included with the county, and that could be incorporated in this as well. So that's
Yes, sir.
the first person to talk to help them through those challenges. Anything else? Y'all think of anything else?
Well, actually, to piggyback on that, I think that, maybe down the road as this thing evolves, we're gonna get it out there and it's gonna sail, right? But we're gonna add on, like you said, because it's expandable and it's kind of flowing. But down the road, when we look at grant writing, maybe there's some assistance that can be lent to these small businesses when it comes to grant writing, at least some coaching and education. The other thing is tying this into York Tech, right? And where can you tie back with York Tech in order to fulfill some of the training needs you may need, with this guy? And the other piece of it too is, I think it's all, and here again, we need to kind of go through this because there's a lot in here, so excellent. But getting feedback from the public once this is launched, how do we identify that? Because I know you have a Q&A.
Yes, sir.
And then highlighting success stories, right, that come out of this thing, and I think that's really, really important too. So, anyways, that's my other
Great
thoughts.
feedback. I just want to thank the Chamber Dean, your leadership. I know when I first joined council 2 years ago, council approved a $300,000 grant for you guys, $100,000 for 3 years, and you've not only taken that money and done significant things with it, but your leadership is tremendous here for York County, even to take on this challenge and do this for us. I would say that, that's one of the reasons why you're recognized as the #1 chamber in the Carolinas. You are the #1 chamber in the Carolinas for 700 members or less.
We like to think that. They actually said we were Chamber of the Year, but I'm going to take the #1 status until next year, just like a national champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but seriously, you're breaking the mold on what traditionally chambers have done, and as a business owner, I'm appreciative of it for one. So thank you so much, Dylan. Great job presenting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
both.
having us.
Excellent.
I hate to say this last minute, maybe this isn't the appropriate avenue to put this, but I will.
Yeah.
Is one of the things that I think it would be really helpful as someone who sits on council is getting some feedback. So I don't know if this is something that you plan to monitor, if there's going to be someone who's watching this, is it going to be interactive at all? But being able, what's near and dear to my heart are the small businesses that are already here in the county, and being able to get feedback from them if they're running into hurdles, whether they're, government issues or something like that. A lot of times they have complaints or concerns, or they're running into hurdles that may be something simple that we can resolve, and so I don't think that would be helpful.
It would, thank you.
And, yeah, if you don't mind me adding, I do think it will be important, we've kind of done the initial work on this, but I think a real decision, I think for you guys, we did this for you guys at your request, and we certainly want to have it on our website, but I think, I hate to use the word ownership of it, but whoever is kind of the keeper of that to kind of make sure it's maintained, because it will need to be updated and somebody monitoring constantly. So there will be, an expense of that. I think it's something you guys probably have the bandwidth, to do easier than we do, but we would be glad to take on that assignment in some sort of a contractual way if it came to that. But I do think it's going to be some kind of constant monitoring, and we can certainly do that in the beginning, but if it's utilized the way you guys want it to, it probably outgrows our bandwidth on that, to be fair.
I agree 100%. All right, staff, anything you guys want to share? Any questions, comments?
Just building off what Dean shared, we're committed to building our support network for small businesses, and I think as we develop some of the focus areas that y'all have shared through the strategic plan, and some of those we're going to talk about today, I think we'll learn how we can better support small businesses, how we can better update this document, but make it more in-person engagement as well. Because I think the value is, yes, this is out there and it's a net, but the relationships that Mitch and his team form with the chamber and others that point people to the actual people is what matters. And so I think this is a net, and obviously it's going to be useful, but hopefully it builds relationships and forms in-person meetings. And to y'all's point, we can build capacity through trainings,
Yep.
and grant writing and stuff like that. So I think that's the added value for our current businesses.
Yeah.
Great comment.
Great work done.
No, that's a good point. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
So sorry, man, I just thought of one other thing. I know we're gonna get feedback on, but what do you estimate would be, like, are we looking at 4 weeks, are we looking at 3 weeks? Or are we setting a timeline so we get feedback and then put it in, and then let's get this site up and launched? Because I know we're going in the springtime, and
Sure.
this is something that's exciting for new business owners.
Well, I think we've got it far enough that that we should be able to send it to folks like Jason and those other partners,
Yeah.
And get some pretty quick feedback in just a short turnaround,
Okay.
where we could report back to you guys at your next this
Perfect.
meeting, so that you know
Okay.
that hey, we think we've kind of scrubbed it the best we can, and so
Mhm.
and pretty much hand it off to you guys and let us know what role you want us to play.
Sounds good, and we could do the launch, get some advertising. It's awesome.
All right.
Right on.
Thank you so much. Great job.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
If you guys want to hang
Appreciate
around
you.
for some more of the meeting, we're glad for you to. If you need to leave, we understand.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have a special guest with us tonight from Greenville, South Carolina, who spent some time in York County. Mark Ferris is with us, and I will start with a question. Anybody in the room, including everybody in the audience, how many years was Mark Ferris with York County?
12.
Not enough.
I got
A
12.
long time.
I
I
got
worked with
12.
you for 25 years.
27, 25,
Well,
anybody else?
about 25 years, yeah.
Michael Kendry wins the prize, yeah. So Mark actually spent 28 years in economic
Well, then I know it
development.
was.
Yeah, you were close. Y'all right on top of it. So 28 years with us, left and went to
That's
Greenville.
about right, because I've been here 13.
I left for health reasons, Watch. Everybody got sick of me.
That's good.
funny.
So Mark has spent the last 9 years in Greenville and started his consulting business in 2023. So we're excited to have you here today and excited for you to be working with us in
Thank you.
economic development.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's exciting. I was glad I got here in time to see that. That's an excellent idea, concept. It's great that you're unified in that. That's wonderful. Mitch has got some great ideas about small business, and we've not had much of that conversation, but it's interesting. When COVID relief funds were provided to Greenville, the county administrator asked me to try to inventory small business in Greenville. By definition from the federal government, we had over 10,000. And so the difficulty, and a lot of times in traditional economic development, is how do you add real value to those folks? I mean, it's easy if you're writing checks, obviously, in that scenario. But a lot of traditional economic development organizations struggle with that, and it sounds like you're making some headway there, so congratulations. I hope that, I'm sure that'll work well.
Yeah, excellent.
As Watts mentioned, I spent a little bit of time here. I started my career in Anderson County, South Carolina, and spent the last 10 years in York County, in Greenville County. Last year I retired, got bored pretty quickly. I'm a hiker and backpacker, and spent several months doing that and enjoyed it, but I missed this. I missed this opportunity. I missed the chance to make a difference and to try to solve problems. And so I started a consulting group, which is me. I was tired of dealing with other people's problems, so I'm doing some work in some communities across South Carolina, a few towns, Chesterfield, Gaffney, and Union, doing work in Georgetown County and in Orangeburg County. But I'm excited to be back home, and I do consider York County my home. I never really listed Greenville as my home as much as I enjoyed my time there, but it's exciting to see all the growth that's occurred, and certainly interesting to see the kind of development that has happened, and the growth and the new people and the opportunity that exists as part of that. Mitch asked me to come here today just to talk a little bit. We'll be talking more as a group, I hope, but talk a little bit about incentives and some of the potential strategies there. When the South Carolina Economic Developers Association put together a handbook on economic development, they came to me and asked me to write something about incentives, and I did that as part of that entire 10-chapter handbook. But the thing that really has stuck with me throughout my career, I was at an event, some of you may remember a gentleman by the name of Carlos Gunning. Carlos was CEO of Michelin North America at the time he gave this talk, but afterwards he asked questions or answered questions, and a question came to him about incentives. Michelin certainly has benefited tremendously from incentives in South Carolina. I think they have 8 or 9 huge facilities, and certainly the communities that they're in have welcomed them. Greenville has the North American headquarters. But Carlos said something that was interesting and always stuck with me. He said, incentives are a tactic, not a strategy. Right? So many communities in South Carolina depend on incentives to make projects work, and that rarely works. So certainly they're important, and we'll talk more about that, but Area Development Magazine is a trade journal that I'm sure Mitch gets and a lot of local economic developers across the nation get. They do an annual survey. They ask over 100 companies why they selected the location they did. Every year, incentives rank 5th or lower. Okay? So transportation, labor force, education, access to markets, all of that's more important. Now, having said all that, targeted incentives can make the difference in a competitive environment, and believe me, it's competitive. In Greenville County, I won't mention the counties by name, but their initials are Spartanburg and Anderson, did very aggressive fee deals for companies. In some cases, they would provide as much as 85% tax reduction through infrastructure credits for these companies. Now, Greenville was not that aggressive. We were able to, through supply and demand, come up with a formula and a matrix that gave us some ability to interject incentives when it made a difference, to select targeted industries, to encourage those targeted industries, and to make sure we did cost-benefit analysis on each one of these projects, but we certainly made sure that it was for the benefit of both the company but the county as well. It's not a difficult thing to do. It takes a little bit of thought and process, and hopefully we'll get there with my time here. Put together some guidelines about how to use incentives and when and if you even want to use incentives. But they can be critically important in competitive environments. South Carolina has made a history of being aggressive with companies, thank goodness. Could you imagine Greenville or Spartanburg without BMW? You know, I couldn't, and certainly we have 130 suppliers for that facility in and around the upstate, and it's made a lot of difference. And certainly, one of our biggest incentives in South Carolina is training, and that's important. But targeted incentives to win companies are definitely a win-win for companies and for the community. So let's talk a little bit about the state incentives in South Carolina. Incentives are there's a dichotomy that exists when you talk about the application of incentives. South Carolina derives its revenue from people, right? Our personal income tax, sales tax, the corporate income is something that's talked a lot about, but it accounts for less than 4% of the state budget. So the state derives revenue from people. So when you have a company come in, they hire people, part of their personal income tax is paid to Columbia. Certainly they buy goods and services that provide sales tax revenue. And so that's where the state incents companies. They do jobs tax credits, jobs development credits. JDCs, for example, will return a portion of that personal withholding on each individual employee back to the company. A very aggressive and targeted incentive, and certainly works very well with a lot of companies. The state also has discretionary money. Right now, I was at a legislative reception Tuesday night, and we were all lobbying the legislators to increase the Department of Commerce's discretionary funding. And the state is very aggressive with that. Thank goodness. It helps us as a team. And let me say that that's how this normally works, is that we are a team. The state and the local folks team up, provide a proposable company, and each proportionally provide some incentive to companies and help them get that project started. So on the other hand, the other side of that dichotomy is the local governments. We derive our revenue from goods, or from real and personal property taxes. So what company invests in terms of land, building, machine, equipment, that's how we derive revenue and I don't know what percentage it might be of the county's budget, but I imagine when I was here last time, industry investment accounted for more than 50% of the revenue that came to the county government. You had industries taxes being paid by those companies. That was at least 50%. I don't know what it is now with all the growth residentially, but the ability for the county to provide things like fee in lieu of tax, multi-county industrial park designation, special source revenue credits. As a team, you put those together with what the state can do, and we can be very aggressive and effective in attracting new jobs and investment. The objective, I think, and certainly Mitch has been working on a couple of things, finding new sites, looking at those targeted industries, talking about how we can, make an impact in some of the inventory sites in York County. But as part of that, we're going to be talking about incentives, how we effectively use those, some guidelines potentially, how you can apply them in specific cases and in a consistent manner in terms of some of the companies, especially the ones that you really won't hear in York County. So it's part of a process. Mr. Chairman, I look forward to working with this group further, and certainly I had an employee who once used to say every time we would come to a problem, he would say, "We'll get there." So we'll get there. We're just going to take some time, go through the due diligence process, and hopefully, provide some insight into how we can effectively, especially use incentives and some of the other things. But be glad to answer any questions or talk more about any particular incentive or.
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes,
sir. So site readiness, right? So, some of the biggest challenges is access to facilities and having a company come in and being able to bring in their site, but at the same time, we have a controlled environment which they can bring it into. So we have X amount of square feet. We have the facilities ready. On a scale, when you look across the board, I'm sure that measures up pretty high when it comes to balancing out the whole incentive scale, right? Because you're attracting them to a site-ready situation as opposed to investment component of the client. So where does that measure up against incentives? Because there's a lot of ways to say incentive, right?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Incentive,
Yep.
having workforce readiness, big incentive, right? So I'm just curious on where
Yeah.
site readiness.
Certainly, site readiness is critical, and the great thing about it, I think, Tom, is that a lot of the incentives that we're talking about can be applied towards the provision of that site readiness. Public infrastructure.
Mhm.
In my career, we've always used incentives to help with public infrastructure, road, water, sewer, the kind of things that benefit the company certainly, but are within the health, safety, welfare guidelines of public dollars.
Right.
Now, the state, a lot of times, they can be more aggressive. The state can provide grants to buy land.
Right.
And do a lot of the things that companies, you know, effectively will use on site.
Mhm.
And I have in my career managed to use these incentives effectively to create that site readiness, to provide safer roads, to
Mhm.
provide things like, you know, improved fire protection,
Mhm.
you know, things that are going to be a bottom line benefit to the company, but also a benefit to the community and within the guidelines of
Mhm.
the health, safety, welfare.
Right, and to me, I think it's a leverage point to drive in or to bring in what we envision from what type of jobs we want to have in this area, the pay scale, et cetera, when we have an ability to offer that as an incentive in itself to bring in those higher paying jobs. So, okay, good, thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you for being here. Look forward to working through the plan. I mean, to me, York County, we're so blessed to have so many things going for us. And one of the things that I know that council has talked about is being more strategic about how we go about attracting the type of businesses that we want. We're in a place where we can be selective, and I think that we already have established guidelines that we use for how we allow FELOs, but I think what council wants to take a look at is how those change, and look forward to the future work that we're going to do to talk through that. Appreciate you being here, Mark.
Thank you.
Just one question. So, in your experience, have you seen many counties have shovel-ready projects?
Yes, yeah, and Watts, a lot of times, you know, if you think about, let's look on the spectrum of South Carolina. You know, you have some really less developed communities. They struggle. You know, you probably recall decades ago the corridor of shame, and the fact that those communities did not have the industrial investment to adequately fund schools. Because obviously, we can go through this in terms of property tax liability in South Carolina. We have what's a nice word, a convoluted system of property taxes in South Carolina. And I would get into arguments, but we effectively subsidize residential with a 4% assessment and Act 38. And we, at some point, will punish businesses. They pay a higher share, probably 2.5 times in some cases. So the application of that is critically important to get to where you want to go.
Okay. Good feedback. Staff, anything you want to ask of Mark?
No, we're thankful for the partnership. I know Mitch is excited, and you've done so much for this county. We appreciate you being willing to come back and work with us and re-engage with us. And long term, I think the work you help us with is going to help us achieve everything we've outlined in the strategic plan. So, really thankful for you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mark. All right, next item on the agenda is the Economic Development Fund. This is a fund that's created, and the fund generates its revenue from fee deals that we do here in the county. So here's what I'd like for you to do. We're not going to get into the details of this tonight, but this is homework. I'd like for the three of us and staff, I'd like for us all to leave this meeting tonight and think about what we ought to consider doing with these funds. Where should we invest these funds? And then I listened to the presentation on the York County Small Business Digital Toolkit, and I had a couple of ideas come to mind that I had not thought of until tonight or today. So please come prepared to share, and if it all works out, we may leave the meeting on March the 6th and have a list of items that we feel like we should consider funding out of the ED fund. Okay? maybe take a second. Mark, you were actually around when the ED Fund was established. Do you mind sharing why the ED Fund was established, and then we're going to move on to the rest of the agenda?
Sure. It's funny, when we actually had a couple of sources of funding. We reserved a portion of C funds a lot of times. Every community has initiatives that they want to see funded in economic development. And almost, by the way, every community in South Carolina, and I say that, I don't know that everyone does, but we certainly have in Greenville. But the concept is to retain a portion of negotiated fee funds to apply to things like site readiness or the application of funding for some kind of development process or product. But the idea was to have a ready source of funding, and certainly in case of the C funds, we were doing that with roads only. If a company came in and said, well, we love this, but we need A-cell, B-cell lanes for our trucks. We would appeal to the C fund folks for that. But in terms of the economic development fund, the concept would be on a higher scale, maybe to have for example, I'll give you one use. We used to build spec buildings, so in several cases, one in Fort Mill, a couple in Rock Hill, we used funding like that to go out and contract with private folks. We didn't do it. We didn't physically contract for the general contractor to come out and do it, or we held title to it, but we had agreements with those private developers that gave them an incentive to do it, and we got our money back. A lot of times in terms of when the building sold, we would recoup the funds that we put into it. But the potentially creating an industrial park. I think a lot of communities in South Carolina have industrial parks that they use those kind of funds for. So it's really at your discretion about how you want to do it. The objective is to provide a program that would create opportunity for additional job creation and capital investment from private industry.
Well, and I think the concept of industrial park, that's gives us an ability to control our destiny, I think, in a lot of different ways. I know we've had discussions around that, and I think, there are some things that we are discussing around that.
Yeah.
So.
That I would encourage you to be diligent about that, primarily because once you take title of the property, you assume a lot of that risk. I think in the cases when we were doing the spec buildings, we were doing that in conjunction with private developers that we shared some risk, and we had a partner in that process so that we ultimately didn't have to, heaven forbid, something go wrong. You had somebody there as a partner in that process. And certainly, if you think about the expertise in this area, and to answer more directly your question, Juan, I guess you're blessed in York County. They're blessed and cursed to some extent, but you got Charlotte, you got a lot of developers, you got a lot of interest in this area. So teaming with a developer wouldn't be a difficult thing to do in that scenario to create that opportunity I think you're looking for. So not that you don't want to own property, if that's your objective, then certainly go for it. But once you do that, keep in mind that you've got water, sewer, roads, you've got other costs associated with it that a lot of communities don't think about. And then once you even do that, unless you have some products, some speculative buildings or pre-graded sites, as you were talking about, the costs tend to mount. So if you go through that, be diligent about it, make sure that you're assessing those costs and even, plan for a rainy day, because nothing goes perfect in those processes, I can tell you.
Some things are out of our control too. Yes.
And we can talk more about financial capacity at the next meeting, but keep in mind, we told you these numbers before. In the budget this year, there's about $950,000 that we transfer for operating. I know we had conversations in last year's budget, about potentially affording more operating out of that, and y'all made it clear you didn't want us to do that, and we hear that loud and clear. But what that means is we got about $4 million in fund balance of the ED fund. This This year, we're projecting about 1.25 going into that fund. We have had some companies decide not to move here, and you've seen that in the news, and we've talked to you about that. That does impact our projections, so the treasurer is working on an updated spreadsheet that we'll have for y'all for the next meeting that includes some of the new companies and what they're deciding to do. And so pulling in about 1.25 million. So if you think about it, that transfer of about 950,000 in the budget, you know, right now that differential is about 150,000. When we look out five years, it looks like we'll be pulling in about 3 million. If we keep that operating expense the same, we'll have about 2 million in a given year adding to fund balance. So we've got 4 million in fund balance, and we're adding to that. And the more companies that move here, obviously that can grow too. So we do think this is a sustainable funding source. We do think you can think about debt capacity potentially with this if you want as a funding source. And we can have more data for you related to that capacity at the next meeting.
Okay,
We don't
thank
have
you.
that today, but something we can work on.
All right, thank you. Mitch, anything you want to add?
No, I'll just say this, you've already probably realized this, Mark's a wealth of knowledge. He's been great to work with just in the few weeks that we've been able to formally work together, but he's also been tremendous in helping us leading up, you know, at no cost, and I'm really appreciative of that, Mark.
All right, thank you, Mark. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, Mitch, thank you, sir. All right, the other issue that we'll talk about at our next meeting is reconstituting the ED board. So we'll have a conversation on that. So be thinking about your beliefs and how that board should be formed and who should serve on it, and everything else associated. You want to add anything to that, Mitch?
No.
All right, now I'm going to turn it over to our new Economic Development Director, Mitch Miller.
Thanks,
Give us an
Will.
update, please.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of follow suit with the strategic plan, really focusing on, you know, 3 areas of that we talked about. I'll start first with agriculture. Had some great relationships that I've been starting to be able to build with Small Business Development Center. Josh is helping with some introductions to Farm Bureau, and then Tommy Atkins as well. But we're going to be looking to establish some meetings. Probably we'll tap in more to Farm Bureau on that. I know that you all had went to a dinner the other night. They're very involved on that side, but similar to what we've done with small business and looking at the Small Business Development Council, where Rock Hill and the Chamber and others are part of those conversations. Lean into those individuals because they're already connected in with the farmers here in our community. And see if we can have some face time, have conversations, really start to understand what are some of your pain points, what's causing you not to be able to grow, and what can we really do as a government to come in and help you all out. I think in doing that, we're going to get a lot of insight, and that'll be helpful for us as we really map out strategy. I will touch on a little bit more detail. I'm a big believer in connections, and I think it's important that we get folks of like mind to come together to think about solutions. And so when I think about whether it's small businesses or farmers, what can we do to really influence dollars going back into the pockets of these folks that are you know, trying to make it with this business, with their farms specifically. So one of the things that I did a couple months ago with Jose Cervantes in our office is we went down to the Swamp Rabbit Cafe in Greenville. Swamp Rabbit Cafe is a food hub that services that Greenville area. Mark probably could speak to it better than I could, but was really impressed to show up on a Monday, see a lot of people at about 10 o'clock, not only you know, enjoying the nice weather that they have, but also going in, buying local source goods at the Greenville market there. And it really has kind of become that hub to buy a local product, and they've done a tremendous job with their brand and their identity to talk about the importance of that. And so as we went in there, we met with their leadership and got a better perspective of, you know, how did you get established? What are some of the things that are important to you? And really, how are you sustaining and staying in business and growing? And a big part of that with this food hub was really being a source where local restaurants could buy direct from local farmers. And so what we're going to look to do and hope to do with some of the relationships with Farm Bureau and others is there a possibility that we can hone in and really kind of create that same network, that framework here, connect farmers to restaurants, and be that resource where, you know, money that's, you know, starting here can stay here instead of going elsewhere. And I think too what that does, it really allows us to start thinking about what is our brand, what is our identity as a community, and how we can elevate that across the Charlotte region and beyond. So I'm excited at the potential to do something there on the ag side, and I think it really can be impactful, not just to the farmers in the community, but also to really our brand and what we're about. So, going into the small business side, Dean, appreciate the work that you, the interns, your team's done. We've had some phenomenal conversations through our Small Business Development Council. I asked Jason Flora to be here as well from Rock Hill. And I think the synergy there where we can really focus on, from a York County perspective, our municipal relationships, our chamber relationships, and other allies to help continue to build those partnerships are going to be really beneficial. This is the work that Dean was able to present in the chamber today. I think that's a testament of just good communication and us all being aligned and on the same page. So I want to look to continue to do that. We've also met with several small businesses. Tom Watts, I know you both were on different visits. I think it's going to be important that we continue to do that, especially from our standpoint, to understand, where have we maybe either, had some issues in the past, and how do we go about addressing some of those, and being just a little bit more fluid with our conversations as folks are looking to establish businesses here or grow here, that we have our act together and we know how to handle some of these challenges that we faced in the past. I feel really confident working with planning, zoning, management's been amazing as well, really going to a lot of those meetings, that we'll be able to address that, and I think it's going to be beneficial, as we get the next project in or the next project. I'm going to touch on kind of what I did with ag. I'm trying to look at ways that we really can hone in and support small business, and again, I think it goes back to putting money in their pocket to be able to grow. And so you'll see from us, I talked in detail with Mark, we'll do this at future meetings as we kind of formalize plans, really looking at how can we help our small businesses leverage technology to a higher degree, to sell their inventory, sell product, get more exposure. I think there's a lot of synergy that I want to talk with Dean about, or visit York County about how we really look at a unified brand and what that means in terms of supporting small businesses at a higher level. And as they're out marketing their product, they can also help market our community as well. So I think there's some cool things that are on the forefront of that. I don't want to bore you to death, and I'm probably a little bit unorganized with my thoughts with that still, but maybe as we look into March and April, really shell out a plan about how we're going to go about doing that and the impact that I think that can have. And then lastly, relationship building, not just within the community, but I think with some of our key allies. Just want to mention, we had Annie Cagliano with Commerce in last week. She is the Director of Global Business Development for the South Carolina Department of Commerce. She came up, Jason and I hosted her at the Thread, toured the facility, talked about some projects we're working on, and really we want to make sure that as Commerce is really looking at our community, they know that we're unified with our approach and really working together to make good things happen here. So I thought, moving forward, as Jason is here tonight, definitely want to continue to be a good partner and attend meetings that Rock Hill has as well. Just make sure that we're just communicating at a higher level.
Great. Any questions for Mitch, comments?
I'll say I'm very excited about, agriculture is one of the most important things that the council has identified as an area to help with small businesses, and I would hope that we would add to it, not just connecting them with restaurants, but with our schools and finding ways to have our schools be aware of where the local source production is, and how do we have that fresh produce, and how do we start encouraging that type of thing and introduce them to those markets with the schools so that they can use them. And I know that one item that it's always interesting, because I think the discussion that I heard from your committee last time was how do you pick and choose, and it's very difficult to pick and choose who's going to be a winner of whatever investment that there's going to be set aside for these folks. But one really small way, which isn't so small, I think, is we have a fantastic PIO that does a great job highlighting things, and I don't think our community knows, and this is what I think was so special about the Farm Bureau presentation, was there was commentary from a lot of the farmers, what kind of crop they do, finding out when they're open, basically highlighting what our local farmers are doing, and that's something that we don't even have to wait on. I would really like to see us do that sooner rather than later. Simply have once a week you highlight a local farmer and let them have some social media buzz and talk about their business, talk about how the community can connect with them and support them, because I really think that a lot of us don't even realize how many there are and how can we help them.
So this, from small, well, let me back up a little bit. I think that it's important for the public to know that the council is out there fighting on behalf of them. So I think going and meeting with companies and doing that, whether small or large companies, I think is important. And again, I think it also ties in, this is holistic across the whole platform. And we've had many discussions about this, and we're continuing to move the pendulum forward, but businesses look at a lot of spectrums. And one of the spectrums is our planning and zoning, right? The bureaucracy of what businesses have to go through sometimes will drive a decision negatively towards whether they want to come in or not, or expand or not. So I think that we really need to hone in on the zoning in part of this and the planning part of this to make sure that we are not just business friendly from an incentive, but we're business friendly from the process flow. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, just in terms of that, one of the things that I've said since I've gotten here is that planning and economic development need to be working together in a lot of things. And you've seen with Mitch and Jonathan working together on their 2 strategic plan goals and basically becoming one goal. I think we've seen a lot of fruit from that collaboration, and we'll continue to structure that innovation, because I think for us, the more relational we are in terms of planning and economic development, the better.
Exactly.
I think when we've gone out and met with businesses, we've had planning and we've had economic development with us, and that's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for the businesses to meet us and know who we are. I think one of the challenges we face, and it kind of goes back to this digital toolkit, you've got the planning department listed in here, and you could put any department there, but just thinking about the customer's experience of, okay, there's a phone number, there's an email address, but how does somebody navigate one of our individual departments in the organization?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And you know, if a resident's lucky enough to know what they're trying to do, they can Google it and figure out what department does that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've got to do is be more approachable and accessible in our departments. And sometimes that's not a position who can help with that. It's thinking about our website, it's thinking about who that key contact is and drilling that home in social media and other avenues. It could mean a position, I know you mentioned that earlier, Watts, in terms of ombudsman. That could help too, but I think our processes have to be better too, and our customer service has to be better. We're all committed, every department, we're working on that as an organization. I think that's what will separate us long term.
Great, thank you for sharing that, Josh. Mitch, as you were thinking about agriculture and the farms in York County, did you think about a state farmers market and the impact it could have on distributing the products to a local community, the restaurants and beyond?
No, I think anything like that definitely can. I think the bigger piece of it all, Watts, is if we have an idea of who we want to become, a lot of those things start to filter in, and we see how it helps us accomplish that.
Yeah, I love
so
that.
if you were to ask me, I think the potential really exists where we can be, the ag hub of the Charlotte region. And it's all geared around the things that we're going to commit to do, how we build around that brand, and how we communicate it.
I love it, yeah. I agree 100%.
I think we have the very first step, and I'm glad that you're doing this, and I hope this is done sooner rather than later. To even before you can start that, you have to have that group of farmers here that's telling you. They're the ones that are going to tell us. We can have all the good ideas we want, but they're the ones that are going to tell us what they can do and how we make it better.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Great comments.
And Watts, this aligns well with state resources. They have funded a significant number of dollars from Commerce to create an agricultural wing. And so they can be a partner and an ally in this process. I'm working with a project right now where they are funding a farmer's market.
Yeah, we'll talk with you about that.
Yeah, but the state has acknowledged that. Mitch mentioned a Southern Cafe. They have 300 farmers in just that general upstate area. Well, actually, they go into North Carolina as well, but it stretches from the company that grows trout the traditional kind of fruits and vegetables. But they have, it's a woman-owned business. Mary Walsh and Jack Oliver started it. Took an old textile mill building right on the Swamp Rabbit Trail, created real value in that for people that were walking the trail. But they actually hired me to help them. They bought a building that wasn't zoned appropriately. So I helped them get a rezoning in Greenville, but they're creating a commissary and a bakery. And they're supplying baked goods to a lot of the coffee shops in the region too. But I guess my point is it aligns well with what the state wants to do too.
Yeah, I agree. I was just in there 2 months ago. Well, thank you for the input there too. Last thing, you mentioned building relationships. I know this is not on our list of items that
So you better be quiet
were
then.
suggested to talk about. So I don't know if we can have consensus here, but whether we do it now or submit it and get it approved and have it on our next agenda. But I believe it's time for us to have a joint meeting with Rock Hill Economic Development. Let's begin to talk about, collaborate on what we're doing and agree on what the priorities are for York County when we look at the types of industries that we want to bring in. So can that be done out of this meeting, or do you want me to submit it and try to get it on the next agenda?
I think collaboration is key. We've already, one of
It's
the
in the
things that we've
strategic plan.
started, well, one of the things that we've started is Josh and I have been meeting with every municipality. We anticipate completing that within the next month. So if we can get that done and then figure out how to incorporate that, I think the
Okay.
sooner the better. But
Well, we'll shoot to have it on the April agenda and see
if we get
a
done
date
before
in May.
then I don't mind us, raising
Okay.
it later.
And
The
then,
power of having the chair on your committee, right there.
that's right. And I'd add to that.
Careful what you.
Yeah. Believe me, I sit beside the chair and the vice chair. I don't know how that happened.
And I know council's vision is to provide economic development to the whole county too, so I'm thankful for Rock Hill. But one of the things we've been working hard on is also developing relationships in Clover, in York,
Yes.
Sportville. TUK says they're all done, so they don't want anything. But I think we're trying to work on those too. So I would consider that too. Maybe
Yes.
Mitch provides y'all updates in his meetings with those other municipalities as an agenda item moving forward, something like that. But there's some great stuff going on in all the communities. And as Mitch and I have talked with them, we've told them, look, we understand your economic development is different than Rock Hills, which is different than Fort Mills, and everybody's different. And I think people have been responsive. We're recommitting to the Lake Wylie Chamber and becoming a member of that as well. So we're trying to build relationships and mend some fences. I think it's going well, but that could be a long-term update for Mitch to give y'all too.
No, I appreciate you saying that. So what I should have said is, we'd like to start with I-77, which would include Rock Hill first.
Sure.
And then move to the other.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to do it. I'm not
Mitch and
questioning
I-
that.
Mitch and I talked about the whole conversation with everybody, so.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I just echo what Josh said. I mean, the municipal connections really have been a priority for our department too.
Mhm.
I presented to Clover's Economic Development Board, met with Dalton Pierce Monday. City of York, had continual meetings with him. We've been with Fort Mill Economic Partners, and I would say Jason and I are at least talking once a week. So, that's a priority for us, and I think it would be helpful too. Maybe if some things come up, then maybe you can bring them in and talk about what's going on in Clover.
Most definitely.
Yeah,
All right.
the synergies have taken off, and again, Mitch, we applaud you for how you kind of jumped in the seat and ran with it, so that's great. And Tom and Josh. The other thing too, I just want to mention overall, again, the end goal, from a community standpoint, is that every family wants their kids to kind of live in the same community, right? So if we do this right and we create these opportunities from an economic standpoint, we're going to see families staying in the area. And I think that's a strong nucleus of what we can do to continue to build out family values from within an area. So
That's a good point.
yeah.
All right, so we're about to move into executive session. That means some people will have to leave the room, but we appreciate you being here tonight. So we're going to move into executive session to talk about an economic development matter 2, actually, project sample and project Yanagi. So do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, so we're going to move into executive session. Everybody, thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate you being here. All right, do we have a motion to exit executive session?
Yeah, motion to exit, no, nothing coming out of executive
Thank you,
session.
sir. Second?
Second.
All right. Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn since we don't have any
So
business
moved.
coming out of executive session?
Second.
All right. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.